Hello, Saline. This is Talk of the Town, Saline High School's official podcast. I'm your host, Cody Stedman, and today we're having an in-depth look into the latest bond to renovate the Saline School District. Now, let's talk local. Joining me now is the superintendent of the Saline Area School District, Dr. Stephen Laatsch. Dr. Stephen, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Cody.
Today, I actually want to get into the details of what the bond really is. I know that many times the Saline video has gone over this, but today I want to go a little bit more in depth on what was talked about and even during the Board of Education meetings.
Sounds great.
All right. One of the questions that I have is, what was the idea of another bond that first introduced to you?
Yeah, we've been talking about doing or proposing another bond for several years now because the previous bond that we had passed in 2015 was really focused on this same safe, warm, and dry perspective of the school district, making sure we had secure vestibules, roofs, heating and cooling, and really making sure that we were bringing up our buildings to be more supporting students in that safe, warm, and dry theme. But we have recognized that we needed to, or we're needing to do a bond that is more focused on academics, athletics, and building up our facilities so that we do consider them state-of-the-art and that they are keeping up with the expectations that our community would have for our programming. And so this latest bond is really focused on that.
Yeah, of course. I can completely understand that if you're trying to pursue something like that would work. Now, during Election Day, can you believe it, a couple months ago from this recording date, did you think that it would pass?
I was always confident that it would pass, but we certainly didn't want to take that for granted. In other words, we felt that we needed to be aggressive and make sure that the community knew that this bond that we were going for is a fiscally responsible bond. We were lowering the millage rate slightly so that more or less means that the tax rate would reduce slightly for residents, and to make sure that they knew that the things that we were proposing in this bond were areas of interest that the community would support. In other words, we did survey the community. We did make phone calls to check to make sure that the things that we were proposing, like new playgrounds, new STEAM centers, some new athletic facilities, those were all supported by the community before we actually went out and asked the public to vote on it.
Yeah, of course. And even when you were talking about how the tax rate decrease would happen as soon as this bond would be brought in and even approved, that would work so much.
Right.
Now, actually, I was going to ask, if so, what secured your confidence about these results?
Well, we did a fair number of community forums and sessions where we would go out and talk to the community at various groups. Like at our senior center, we engaged those folks that support STEAM programming, talk to people that have students that are involved in athletics. So we had a pretty good feel that the community, the school community itself, supports all of these improvements in the district. We also needed to work, though, on some of the residents that don't have school-age children anymore so that they could see the value of continuing to improve the school district, because it's studied that, strong school districts increase home values and increase the overall value of the community itself. So we were also promoting the bond with people that have school-age children, but then we were also talking to people that didn't in Rotary Club and some of the other organizations around town, the Saline Chamber of Commerce, that not all the business owners necessarily have school-age children, but we were hoping that they could see the value of passing this bond, and we were successful in doing so.
Oh, yeah, of course. And what is being done now for the renovations across the district to take place?
Right. We're currently in what is known as phase one of the bond. There's going to be 3 phases. So the bond that was passed was $180 million, and basically that's spread out amongst these 3 phases. So if you want to think sort of 60 million, 60 million, and 60 million. Mm-hmm. So for this first phase, we are now starting the process of organizing design teams. There's going to be 4 design teams. One is going to focus on the high school weight room. One is going to focus on STEAM centers, particularly the one at the high school. That will be one of the first ones that is designed and built. And then we also have the Liberty Recreation Complex, which is the space between Liberty School and the middle school. And then finally, we have a final one that's going to look at playgrounds. So playgrounds at the elementary buildings. And so these 4 design teams are reaching out to the community now to see which community members want to be part of designing those 4 areas. And we're trying to get students involved. We want teachers involved, administrators involved, and community members. So we really are trying to reach out to get these design teams ready. We're focused on around 20 people for each of these design teams. And that's what we're doing right now. That's one of the first things we're doing to kick off the planning process.
Yeah, even high schools can be able to get into that since they're still technically part of the community.
Right.
Even with architectural CAD taught by Mr. Valisoff here at the high school, how he is able to teach his students about anything that's under that umbrella. Maybe would they be included with that?
Perfect segue, Cody. In fact, we had a design meeting yesterday with King Scott, who's our architectural group, and Clark, who's our construction management team. And they were talking about that exact same thing, that how would we get students that are involved in CAD and interested in design involved? And one of the ideas that we're working on with King Scott and Clark is offering some paid internships for students to work over the summer, to work directly with King Scott and Clark as we start to design things using CAD software, for example. So we do anticipate involving students. We think it's a really important part of the design work, and we're eager to get started.
Would you think that getting architectural CAD students included be starting this year, including this year's seniors, or next year?
We really haven't worked through, whether it would be seniors or juniors, but we do anticipate it being this year. So when we talk about upcoming, we're talking about this summer, not a future summer, because design work does need to start right away. The actual building of these projects won't start for a while, but the design phase does need to begin now.
So just to make sure, let's start for the high school. What's going to happen here at the high school?
Yeah, well, 2 projects that are underway are the high school weight room and the STEAM center. If we start with the weight room now, or the athletic training facility, the weight room is on the 2nd floor of the building, which is problematic in that structurally, it's generally not good to have a weight room on the 2nd floor because it does take a toll on the structure of the building. So it's important that we move it long term into a 1st floor space, which is where the new weight room will go. It'll come right off the front of the building. So if we think about where the small drop-off loop and small parking lot is right across from the pond, we're going to be building the weight room and the STEAM center coming straight out there, more or less next to each other. And so that's going to be happening soon. That's that design team work. As it relates to the STEAM center, we really need to make sure we're involving science teachers, arts teachers, mathematics teachers, in addition to students and community members that are actively involved in Science Olympiad, FIRST Robotics. Those type of programs are also going to use the space. So it's going to be a combination of students using the space during the day for STEAM-related activities, but then in the afternoon and evening, it's going to be a space that needs to work well for Science Olympiad and FIRST Robotics, a couple of our really strong programs that support STEAM in a lot of competitive ways.
When you were showing one of the presentations at one of the Board of Education meetings, you were talking about what would be included in this. And one of the larger ones noticed in one of the graphs that you shown was remodeling. Mm-hmm. And one of those would be for what would happen at the high school. And for the high school, many of them mentioned cafeteria tables, flooring, roofing, and even one of them that I know that many high school students have been wanting for a long time, AC in the gym. Can you talk about that, please?
Yeah, I mean, that's right. So the bond is broken down into different categories of how many millions of dollars go into these budget areas. Remodeling is a very large one because, we have new construction, which would be, for example, new construction would be the new STEAM and weight room area in the high school because we're building out of the existing structure. But most of the other projects we're doing, or many of them, are remodels, whether it's new roofs or, air conditioning, or we're putting, at some of the other elementaries, for example, we're remodeling spaces to make STEAM areas. We're not building out. So there is a lot of money built into the remodel part of this bond, like you mentioned, Cody.
Yeah, that would actually have a large impact on the students because many of them were actually, that I was talking to personally, that they were saying that why would they want to take these courses if we're trying to be able to work out and be able to do all of these things in the gym when it's supposed to be 80-some degrees outside, and inside it's about 105. So these changes would probably make a big impact on students here, would they?
Right. I mean, the air conditioning one you brought up is a big one. Right. We need air conditioning in the gym and that area. And so it'll be nice to be able to move forward with that for our students, no question.
Let's see if we can actually move on past the high school, including all of the other elementary schools and the middle school. You were mentioning that there's going to be a large renovation in the area between Liberty and the Saline Middle School. What's going to happen there?
Yeah, that's known as the Liberty Recreation Complex. And we say recreation because this is used by, yes, it will be used by, our middle school athletic teams, but it's used for community ed activities. And it will also be a space that can be rented out for various activities, for tournaments and so forth. We're looking forward to seeing this space redesigned. We're going to have a junior stadium, whether a football stadium, soccer stadium. There's going to be fields for soccer and lacrosse and field hockey. There's some new baseball and softball field configurations, new tennis courts, a walking path that will go around the entire facility. So it really is going to be nice. It's part of phase one, so we're doing elements of it in phase one, and we're looking forward to get going on that. As you spoke about elementary, we're also working on new all-accessible playgrounds, which more or less means that we want all our students to be able to participate on when they're out on the playground, whether a student is using a walker, a wheelchair, or it doesn't need any of those devices. We want to make sure that the playground equipment and the paths and all the ability to get around the playground are set up so that it's all access. And we started doing this at the Pleasant Ridge Playground, which was great. We've already put in a few all-accessible playground equipment pieces, and that's having a big impact. So we're really looking forward to moving on with that project, along with getting going on some of the STEAM components.
Yeah, and actually one of them being, in addition on to the Saline Middle School, the Saline Senior Center, and how you were talking about with the walkways and how everyone is able to use it as a community education area where even when the senior who are at the senior center are able to participate in it. And including part of the senior center, we're talking about adding more items with the bond, one of them being a pickleball court. Can you talk about that?
Well, pickleball is potentially the most popular sport activity that we've seen in a long time, and there is significant demand for pickleball courts around the community. When the new senior center gets into the remodel phases, which is a little later on in this bond process, it's definitely going to include some pickleball courts, and we also have to figure out how we can get some additional outdoor spaces for pickleball. Part of this bond includes moving the transportation center out onto a new piece of property in Saline. In other words, where the buses are now, we're looking to move that out so that we can expand the senior center and that will also be where the STEAM area will be. In addition, we're going to be building and remodeling a cosmetology center for our cosmetology program that currently has a space on Michigan Avenue in Saline in one of the strip mall areas. So we are looking forward to all of that work, even though some of that will happen down the road, a number of years down the road.
Yeah, of course. And that cosmetology being part of the SWWC,
Right,
and being able to be used by different students from all different districts in the Washtenaw County area.
right.
And that would be a major help to students who actually want to pursue that type of area.
Yep, exactly right. So we're looking forward to all of that.
All right, nice. And one of them that I do want to mention, moving past the bond, trying to talk about the recent flood and, as you're known, Snow Day Steve as one of them. Will the money of the bond be used for emergency purposes?
That's not how the bond money will be used. So, for example, with that we had a water main break at the high school in the main office area that did cause, and that happened over the winter break, that caused some significant damages. That's covered under our insurance policy. So, Saline Area Schools uses SETSAG, which is an insurance provider that many school districts use. So that work is covered through that policy. More or less, school district, you pay a deductible, and then that means that all the work that is done is covered under that insurance policy. So that type of thing is not coming out of the bond.
And that recent bus crash that happened at Harvest would be covered by the insurance policy too,
Same
right?
thing. SETSAG involved with that to remodel that classroom that will need some remodeling at Harvest. Yes, same thing.
All right. And actually, I was going to refer to the graphs, but we actually kind of already mentioned that earlier while talking about the bond. I'll move on to the next question. Former educational leaders have done these bonds before in 2000 and the one that was in 2015. Why do you think that this one will be different?
Well, they all have a different focus. The 2000 bond was largely to build this school, Saline High School, Harvest Elementary, and some of the remodeled music rooms that happened at Heritage School. So that was all part of 2000. Then in 2015, that was, again, that safe, warm, and dry bond that was largely focused on new roofs, parking lots, secure vestibules for safety. So it's, there's more of a check-in process, a buzzer system, heating and cooling. That was the focus of 2015, and the focus of this most recent bond is more in the how are we going to upgrade our facilities to better support our academic and athletic programs, our community education programs. That's a lot of the focus. It still does include a fair amount of technology and infrastructure, roofs and flooring, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
But the focus of this bond is different than the previous two.
All right. That does put it into perspective. And so if we move back to the high school, actually including the middle school as well, would you think that there's going to be any classroom renovations for the science classrooms? Because we know that with the science classrooms, there's many sinks and gas filters that are just randomly in the science classrooms. Would you think that there's going to be any renovations for that?
Yeah, it does call for some science renovation at the high school. Now, we recently redid the science labs at the middle school. That was part of the previous bond. So that's really not a focus here. But for the high school, there are some room for improvements in some of the science spaces here.
All right. Would there be anything new with the tech systems? For instance, we saw as soon as we came back for this school year, the intercoms got changed to something new, and even an emergency alert that we saw with the recent outage. Is there anything new that's going to come after this school year?
Yeah, well, that's all part of this InformaCast system, which is this more or less a better way to work on keeping buildings secure, and if there is an emergency, allowing many people to help activate the system in InformaCast and potentially lock a building down. So that system, including new intercoms, is now installed at the high school, and obviously we've been still working through some of the logistical support for that. And it's installed at Pleasant Ridge Elementary School. And then, yes, this will carry over into the other buildings to make sure that we are providing the safest environment possible for our kids.
Of course. And with those new systems, those be able to help protect the students at the Saline Area Schools and to make sure that we can be able to get through on whatever's to come in the future.
Right. We want to make sure that we are providing the safest environment. That also includes professional development for our staff and our students as it works on, security and drills and just making sure that we've done everything we can to the best of our ability to make sure that we are still offering a welcoming environment, but also a secure environment for our kids.
Now, are there any final thoughts you want to elaborate on?
Well, I just appreciate the opportunity to talk about the bond. We're just thrilled that it did pass, and the community, and we are putting a great effort with our team in the school district to involve the community in the planning process and making sure that the community understands how is the money being spent. It's very important for us to be transparent about how we're spending money because we do really value that we understand that the taxpayers helped us pass this bond, and we want to make certain that they are involved in the process along the way and not, shut out of the process. We just want to make sure that we are involving people, and we feel good about that direction, including really getting students involved.
Now, I want to thank you so much for being able to join us, Dr. Laatsch, to be able to really to state out these things that many things that were pointed out in the bond probably weren't elaborated or even explained that much. So I thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
And I encourage all of you watching today to check out the Talk of the Town other episodes when they come out on Saline Video and on the Saline Video YouTube channel. I'm your host, Cody Stedman.
And I am Superintendent Dr. Laatsch, a.k.a. Snow Day Steve.
We'll talk to you all soon.
This episode of Talk of the Town is brought to you by Saline Video, with special thanks to our guest, Dr. Stephen Laatsch. If you would like to produce an episode of Talk of the Town, you can talk to Mr. Bush in room C244 or send him an email. Thank you for listening, and we will talk to you soon.